and welcome. I've compiled a few stats here that are sure to make you think about things and maybe reconsider chances of things happening to you, good or bad, mostly in a pretty good way. I mean, statistically speaking, you shouldn't even be alive. The chances of your existence genetically is a staggering 1 in 400 quadrillion. Now that's 400 with 15 zeros trailing behind it. So 17 zeros after a 4. But this fact, I mean, it's interesting, but it's generally completely inconceivable to our normal human minds. Although stats and probability are informative, they can be powerfully misleading or meaningless without context. For example, if I was to say that eating apples halves your chance of cancer, I'm no doctor, this is not a real stat, it would likely sound pretty important and consequential. But if I added that in context, your chances actually went from 0.02% to 0.01%. Technically, both statements are true, although they both have very different implications. You're not going to change your life with a stat like that. It's a good thing to be aware of, as it's employed in many areas of life, like advertising, politics, all that kind of thing. Context is key. Figures, probability, and statistics in general are absolutely meaningless without a base context. It is used quite often to sell you products or even to literally manipulate massive groups of people into thinking a particular way. An American man named Roy Cleveland Sullivan was struck by lightning 7 times over his life. The chances of this are mind-bogglingly small, at 1 in 10 followed by 28 zeros. Your actual chance of being struck by lightning is far higher than we commonly think, at about 1 in 15,000. Another ridiculous stat is the insanely small chance of shuffling a deck of cards the same way twice. This seems counterintuitive, I know, but the math works out. It happens to be about 1 in 10 followed by 68 zeros. It is highly unlikely that anyone has ever shuffled a normal 52 card deck the same way as anyone else, ever. This obviously can't be confirmed or tested, but the stat makes it highly unlikely. I find that crazy. Many beliefs around danger are completely misplaced as well, with the common example being air travel. You only have a 1 in 205,000 chance of dying in a plane crash, making it literally one of the safest ways to travel that you can do. But you've got a 1 in 107 chance of dying in a car crash. You also have a 1 in 584 chance of dying as a pedestrian. Surprisingly, motorcycle accidents have a 1 in 890 chance of taking you out, making the former, pedestrian, about 1.5 times more likely to kill you than a motorcycle. Again, with context, this is due to people engaging in pedestrian activities far more often than their exposure to motorcycles. Just like your risk of sharks, being attacked is about a 1 in 3.7 million chance, and being killed by a shark is at a whopping 1 in 250 million, whereas dog fatalities come in at around 1 in 115,000 as a global statistic. The prevalence of dogs being the main catalyst for such a statistical difference. Wasps and bees are almost twice as dangerous, with a 1 in 63,225 chance of clipping your ticket. And also, food for thought, if you're left-handed, you've got about a 1 in 7 million chance of dying by using a right-handed appliance, and vending machines kill at a rate of about 1 in 11 million. Also, 1 in 100 people are naturally ambidextrous. The more you know. The stats on life are interesting and lend some perspective to time. If you live to the average global life expectancy of 75, you'll have on average spent 23 full years sleeping, around 17,200 hours in school, and around 5,000 hours with school-related tasks including homework, travel, etc., equating to 3 full years. If this included university, it would be around 5 years. You will spend on average 90,000 hours working, or 10 straight years 24/7, 29,000 hours, 3 years of housework, and about 32,000 hours or 4 years eating. If you live in a modern country, you will likely spend the equivalent of about 113,000 hours or 13 years on your phone. I was surprised at how high that was, and alternatively, with the claim that we only spend 2160 hours or 3 months on the toilet. If you live with your parents to the average age of 18, you will have spent literally 95% of your likely time you will ever spend with your parents, the remaining 5% being spread out over the remainder of your life. I find the stat particularly confronting. That means also you would have spent 95% of the time you'll ever spend with your kids by the time they leave at 18. And really lends perspective on how you might want to value and use the time that you have with your loved ones. There are of course a few stats that aren't all that comforting, like the fact that if you're under 20 right now, you have about a 1 in 4 chance of being disabled by the time you retire, or that you have about a 7% chance of dying on your birthday, far higher than any other day. Some are just trinkets of interest, like the fact that Jeff Bezos literally has more dollars than he has brain cells. That's not even a joke. And you have about a 20% chance of being born on your due date. Some stats are obvious but still interesting to quantify. You have a 1 in 1.1 million chance of becoming a movie star, but the chances of winning an Oscar are actually only 1 in 11,500, which seems wrong, but this is due to the great number of supporting staff involved in any movie production. If you want to become an astronaut, you have a minuscule 1 in 12 million chance currently, which actually happens to be just slightly less than your chance of winning the lottery at about 1 in 10 million. By the way, your chances of getting an Olympic medal sit at about 1 in 662,000. It's definitely not all doom and gloom though, as you have a respectable 1 in 250 chance of being a genius. And if you're a writer, then you have an astounding 1 in 200 chance that you'll write a New York Times bestseller. And you have a 1 in 5,780 chance to clock in a century. Not too bad. The chances of you becoming a millionaire are between 6.4 and 22%, depending on various controlling factors, including locality and circumstance. But that means on the very lowest of probability, and regardless of circumstance, the chance sits at a whopping 1 in 156.25. That is encouraging. Billionaire stats, on the other hand, is a bit of an ambitious goal at about 1 in 4 million. I hope that gives a little bit of perspective. We tend to fall into common ways of thinking and should always strive to challenge perception in order to maintain our grounding. They calculate the universe to be 13.7 billion years old. Completely unfathomable. Though if you were to condense that time down into 24 hours, the whole of human existence wouldn't appear until the very last second. Mind-boggling. Depending on how you look at information, you will appreciate it differently. We should all feel very lucky to be here, because as you know, the chances of your existence was unappreciably minute, showing that a small chance is still a chance. And with some of these stats being surprisingly favourable, I hope this has given you a little reassurance and or interest, as it did me. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and have an excellent day.